All right, so we're going to move into the second part of healing and um, fixing types of brushes. So last class we were looking at spot healing, healing brush, patch tool. Didn't really use any of these ones. The content aware we already talked about red eye, but I was mostly talking about these, and I kept talking about or not maybe, but about the clone stamp tool, and this is the clone stamp tool right here. And usually you're going to be wanting to work with all of these spot healing, healing, patch, and clone stamp. But I think the clone stamp is different enough that you might want to learn that one alone. So the clone stamp tool, just real quickly, just looking at the top, it has brushes. We can get some. You can set up some tools that you like. You know, we know how to change our size of our brush and everything, so we're not going to be doing any of that. But there are modes, and you can play around with that if you want. But I don't really find myself changing these very much. Usually, normal is where I'll be. I have heard of people playing with opacity and flow. Again, I'm not really sure why you would want to do that, but maybe some people feel like they get better control that way. The one thing that you want to pay attention to is how you're sampling, and this is a sampling piece of or tool rather, um, a lot like the healing brush, right, where we're sampling out sections. Okay, so you want to think about where you are selecting from and where you're sampling from, and then where you're painting. So we want to be, let me throw this layer away because I think that's distracting for a moment. I made a test one here. You want to be non-destructive, right? So you can see this is the original image, and then I did a test one just to kind of show you the idea of what I'm doing. And you can see that I just basically am removing the people from the image. Um, the idea here is that the layer is where I did all the cloning, and I'm sampling from the background image. So the background image wasn't changed in any way whatsoever. Totally straight up, just the way it came. And all of the edits and stuff are on this layer, the test layer. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer, and I'll call this one clone stamp. Let's turn that off so we don't lose track of that. So if you notice, I'm working from this layer and the layer below. So the current layer is what's selected, which is clone stamp, and then the layer below is the background layer. So that's what I'm working with. Um, I'm going to just only do clone stamp with this project, but I am going to actually go into this restoring project over here in just a moment, just so you can see the different types of tool sets that are involved. I'm probably not going to go to this level where I get it that done, but I just want you to be able to see that that's the level I'm hoping you guys will get to. So the clone stamp works in an unusual way in that, again, it's a right here again, clone stamp, and it's a sampling tool, right? So I can be in my clone stamp layer. I don't want to write in my background. I'm going to hold Option again. That allows me to sample, and I'm going to sample right on her eye. And now you can see that the center of my selection has her right there. If I were to be careful, I could hit Alt and sample at the waterline, and then I could actually align this to the waterline, and then I could paint her out pretty evenly. Now you can see that the problem now isn't just the waterline, it's actually the rocks as well. And you're like, well, that's kind of basically just like what the patch tool did, right? And you're right, it is. And that's where you're probably going to have your struggles is when do I want to use the patch tool? When do I want to use the clone tool? And the answer is it's hard to say. Um, it could really, it's going to vary all the time. You're going to always be kind of using one or the other. In this case, I think the stamp tool works the best, or the clone stamp tool works the best in terms of at least taking these characters out. Let me zoom in here and show you. I mean, the easiest ones to get rid of are going to be these people in the back because they're so far back. The rocks are pretty much a jumble. The angle on them is basically turning them into kind of almost a gray. Um, Things get a little bit harder as we get closer to our main character. Um, we're starting to have this problem where, they're closer, so our eye is going to kind of fall to this area. I got some shadows I got to deal with. And this character is going from pretty close up, and then because of the perspective, are running into these really far back rocks. So there's a lot of variance in the size of the boulders, stuff like that. So let me zoom in and I'll deal with the background here. Um, you know, I just did a quick kind of like, I did a patch heal on this, and you can see that if you try to patch heal this, it just doesn't do a good job. It'll keep kind of doing things like that. And so when you're finding yourself really fighting the patch tool, this is when the remember, it's a predictive tool. When predictions are just not working for you, you're going to have to be more in control. And that's what the clone stamp is. The clone stamp is total control. You want to think about the size of your brush a lot. I just paint that? No, I didn't. You want to think about the size of your brush, and you want to be, you're going to have to change it a lot, the size. So you're always going to be changing that a bit. Also, you kind of want to watch your hardness. Like, I think I see some people, some tutorials talking about having a really soft edge. That can be helpful. It can also be a hindrance, so you want to watch out for that. Some people kind of prefer to have more in the range of like 80 to maybe 70 would be maybe their softest edge, and so you'll want to play around with that a little bit. The problem with soft edges is that if I get too soft and then I try to sample, say, this shoreline, for instance, and I sample here, when I come over onto this person, it can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge to get that to look good, but you can see it looks pretty good already. Painted that in the wrong layer. Make sure I'm in the clone stamp layer. I don't want to mess with this layer. But you'll find that sometimes having that softness just will be a bit of a problem. So what I like to do is sample, just like I did, a sample section of, say, this shoreline right here, because I want to paint into this shoreline. I don't want to try and just, just squeak in there. I'm going to actually grab some of the shoreline. So you're kind of trying to pick out a section that, that is similar in shape and tone. You can see where it's going to paint, and then I sample from here, and what I want you to notice is how, as the sample just moves, it's just going to move down into the water, and it's going to match all of these, click by accident, it's going to match all of these little color changes in the water. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to match the shoreline. Trying to miss this section of this little outcropping right here, so I can leave that because I think it's a nice natural feature. I'm just trying to get right onto the head. I'm going to paint, and now this is not adaptive, right? This isn't gonna when I let go of the brush, it's not gonna like try and figure out what I'm doing, right? Notice that it doesn't seem like it, but I'm running into that lady right there. Remember, she was standing right. You see the white cross? That's where she was standing. Just painted her out. And then put her back over there. And so that's kind of the drag with the clone stamp, is that you really have to work in stages. And I think that's probably one of the bigger things that people talk about, and I'm going to reiterate more and more with you guys, is that you just have to work in stages. But the cool thing is now I have the water here. I'm just going to grab that water again, and just doesn't look quite as good. Let's sample. I kind of moved too much to the side. Let's go. I'll sample here. Line that water up better. There. Let's change those bands, right, of water. That looks pretty good. So they're gone now. Maybe, like feel like that area just doesn't look quite right. So I'm just gonna paste that. There we go. Now I need to get these rocks in here. So you know, the rocks, if I pick rocks from right here, it'll work, but it kind of, they sort of repeat. Kind of need that angle, you know. This is a very distinctive rock, so you know, basically it starts to become kind of artistic. You know, you're getting artistic in your process. So I'm just gonna make my brush a little bit bigger. I'm gonna sample over here, and I think it's good to try and hit the edge of the rocks. I'll come back over here, and then see how that just kind of lines up nicely with that rock right there. And then I'm just gonna paint it over. I actually don't like that now that I look at it, because I'm getting too much of the water. So I'm gonna just sample so I don't have as much water. Line up like that. Now I have a problem there where I got a little too much water, so I might just sample again the water. Not a good push too big. Remember, I'm pretty far away, so I probably can just paint this in pretty well. Didn't like that. Let me sample here. It's kind of it's just showing right there too much. Okay. Now I can just sample some areas here on the rocks, make my brush a little bit bigger. Let's get a sample right about, say, here. And see how that just kind of, that white line just matches right there. And you're just kind of picking out sections that work. You know, I can see this rock here kind of matches. I'll just sort of go like that. And then I'll kind of come over from this one. Maybe not quite enough. Let's go like that. Now I'm going to grab maybe right here, and then just kind of paint over that leg. And it's starting to kind of repeat, so sometimes just kind of, I'll do like one click like that, and then I got that rock that kind of repeats right there, so I'll just sort of put that right there. Now I'm getting a little bit better, so I'm going to sample a little bit farther away. And then I'm going to come just under that rock right there. I'm going to sample here and take maybe right here and take that and wasn't maybe enough, but you kind of have to start a little good enough distance away to actually be able to grab stuff that it'll go over. And then also the other thing is, remember that you may not get it like on the first shot. It might not look super great, but you have to just kind of keep kind of selecting out sections and then painting them over. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit with the this one here might be, see how I'm getting that shadow on, that's actually their shadow. Let's take their shadow out. Didn't go far enough away. Putting into them again, so I'm just going to kind of sample over. And you can see I'm just kind of grabbing out chunks. Maybe I want something um, a little more rocky right there. Remember, I'm pretty zoomed in right now, so I think that I'm being probably overly thoughtful. And then I got this little shadow right here, so I'll just sample right about there. Actually, sample more like about here further away. A little bit of, feels like that's a little bit of a shadow, but I don't think it is, so I'm going to zoom back out. And there we go. And you know, that is the exact same rock right there, but it looks a little bit different, enough that you know, it doesn't draw too much attention, and it's gone. Um, you know, getting her to go out, this was definitely the challenge area, was getting her out. You know, as you can see, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on here. She's hard to get out of the image. Okay, just a little bit of that. Let's go maybe over here. Yeah, it looks pretty good right there. Maybe, and then this kind of seems like the edge of a rock right here, but it's hard to get. So grab right there. You kind of like that, but it's hard to grab, you know. So maybe, and remember, you kind of have to stay in this region. It's like you're sort of stuck. You can't come out. You know, in the back here, it's a little bit easier. We can grab maybe, say, these right here, for instance, and we can paint it. We can paint out her head, right? We can grab maybe that rock right there, come back. And then remember, you can then grab the water. Remember, you got to kind of line things up, right? That's sort of the trick there. Basically, you can see I'm not gonna finish this whole thing with you guys, but you can see I'm just kind of picking out and going over chunks of her and just slowly, get far enough away, slowly building up. And the thing you want to try to do is you're trying to pick out good transitions and just kind of, you're looking where cracks are and then try to kind of pick out like a nice transition there. And you're trying to get into similar areas of the rock face, right? I like that dark spot right there, so maybe I'll try and grab from a similar dark spot. And what I would suggest is don't get, if it, you know, you see a lot of repetition, like that's pretty repetitious right there. Don't try and fix it out right away. Just kind of grab another section somewhere and then so maybe do something like that. Maybe grab over here a little bit and you can just kind of do something like that and it'll kind of clear that out. I find it a little bit easier if you can just get her like convincingly removed. with some pretty good rock pattern, you'll feel pretty pretty you know it'll come out fairly easy once you got her gone. You can kind of match that there. That's better. Once you've got her gone, you can kind of start being a little more artistic about it. And so now, like, I'd say I could find like maybe a good edge here, like say, using my mouse here. It's right here. I'll select out this area right here. Get that little hard edge right there. Maybe just paint up. And then kind of come back with this red rock a little. And then you get kind of a nice hard edge. And just kind of looking for some good hard edges to work with at this point, just to kind of make it look a little more jagged in that area. And then you can kind of, this is maybe where a soft edge would be a little more helpful, because you can kind of blend now. I can see a little bit of a patterning right there, so let's just try something like that. I'm pretty zoomed in again, remember, that's pretty zoomed in, so, there you go. Gone. Guess I said I wouldn't do all that, but there you go. Maybe there's a little bit of something there. I don't know if that's part of the rock or not, but done. So we'll finish that one, and now we'll take a look at the other.